Hey, what up, y'all? Johnny K here from Team Xzavieur. Now, today we have a massive patch incoming, 1.03 for Elden Ring. So, we're going to go through my personal TLDR, then we'll run through some of the big bullet points, and then I'll give my overall impressions. So, if this helps you out, leave a like, comment, share, subscribe. Now, let's get into it. So, first off, the TLDR. We got a big patch, nerfs, buffs, questline fixes, new NPC summons. So a lot of broken quests have fixes implemented, even though a few sound like big time bandaid fixes. Just, slap a little something on it, it'll be fine. Okay, new quest phases added for a few NPCs, diallos, neheli, Kenneth, and Gostoc. I'm probably butchering those names, but if you played it, you should know who they are. And that's mainly to help players along who get a little confused during those quests and what they're supposed to do. There's a new NPC, Jar Bairn, located in Jarsbuge, very fittingly. The map now has icons with names for NPCs on the map, so you can actually keep track of where they are supposed to be or where you're going for a quest, which should have been in here from the beginning, I think, but we'll get into that a little later. So more NPC summons for boss fights, in case you want to go it more solo, don't necessarily want to have the fur clawing finger out, deal with all the invaders. I hear ya. So the Mimic Tier summon, damage nerf, and behavior change. Now they haven't gone into detail on numbers or what the behavior change is, but I'm guessing it just doesn't use some of the more cheesy items. Now, Hoarfrost, Ash War, both a damage nerf and a cast time increase, so double hit with the nerf bat there. Sorcerer, decreased FP cost and increased range on a number of spells. So overall buff for most sorceries. And then the other big one too to come out of this is the Sword of Night and Flame. Both aspects, the Night and the Flame side, have been nerfed, and both their damage and their FP cost has been raised slightly. So let's get into some of the big points here, and then I'll give you my overall opinions on them. So patch notes 1.03 from the official site here. I'll have it linked down in the description. You want to check it out and read through it all by yourself. So we come into all major platforms in Steam. Okay, major changes included, added the function for the NPC map, the new NPC quest phases. Okay, that NPC summons, a number of things you can imitate with Mimic's Veil, which can be a lot of fun for hide and go seek for those fun little invaders. And then just random background music. A whole list of bug fixes, a few of the notable ones, NPCs that you could sometimes summon were invincible to certain bosses, so those should have been taken care of. Some items that you were supposed to get from defeating a certain boss, you just never got, so that's supposed to have been taken care of. Now they did cover some of this slightly as we go down farther, that certain of the items, if you do not get them, will be available at different NPCs in their shops. They didn't explicitly go into that except for a couple examples. So a whole other list of bug fixes, some warping issues. Here's one, for example, that they added. In a situation where the player cannot obtain more than 2 talisman pouches, added it to the Twin Maiden Husk shop lineup. Unsure if that'll be free or if you have to spend souls for what you get normally, but either way, at least you can get it without going all the way through to New Game Plus. So a whole other list of bug fixes, a few visual effect change for Unseen Form. All right, random fixes, random improvements. Okay, balance changes. Now this is going to be the big one here that gets a lot of people upset, because overall, I feel like it was more nerfs than buffs. And we'll have to wait and see how the numbers play out here. I'll be doing some testing tonight yet. But overall, increased drop rate of some smithing stones for enemies. Not a big deal. Most people go through, get the bearings. You just have an unlimited number of them after that, just for runes. Added smithing shop to early game shop lineup. Now that, in my opinion, is a good change. Get in, actually try out a few more weapons before you get so far into your build by scaling the weapon stats that you need 10 levels to even try out a different weapon, especially if you're unfamiliar with Souls games, these in particular. Because half the fun is trying out the new weapons and new play styles. Increased shield effectiveness. That could be so-so. If it also extends to PvP, could be a little bit annoying because there's still some ridiculously strong shield block builds going on. They did also note that they fixed the interaction, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen if you've done PvP, of a certain flame spell that you can cast on yourself, start yourself on fire, and another shield where you could essentially freely burst out damage reflections from the Sentinel shield. So that supposedly has all been fixed now. Increased damage of crackpot items. So most of your craftable throwing items, now maybe they'll do more than 90 or 100 damage, which is worthless later. Reduce FP for a bunch of spells. Increase damage for a bunch of spells. A few projectile speed enhancements. Alright, this is the one here. The Hoarfrost double nerf. A lot of people would probably be unhappy about that. This is also a nerf for Bloody Slash. So anybody who is relying on that heavily have to see how much it actually does change it. The other probably big one in this list, the weapon skill for Sword of Night and Flame. Right there, damage nerf. Have to see the numbers yet. It was probably a little overtuned for what it was, being as early as you could get it, not being locked behind a specific boss or another area you could more or less run to it. All right, right here is your Mimic Tier Ash. So that summon will go to for a lot of people. Behavior change that, so maybe a lot more people now will be going towards the Black Knife Tiche and moving over towards that as the go-to for the time being. And then they just list other random changes. You have to play online, obviously, after this update. So back to the TLDR. I think there's going to be a lot of people a little taken back by the scope and change of some of these nerfs, whereas I feel like most people I've talked to want the developers to expand play styles and options rather than just nerf everything into the ground. That's a little bit overtuned instead of bringing a lot of other things up in line with that. But these could also be some of the bandaid fixes that we spoke about, where this is something that they're doing for the immediate time being to not turn a lot of people off from just using the few 5 or 6 things that are OP before they bring these other things up in line, which I'm guessing comes with a more sweeping overall balance pass later on. So new NPCs are always good. Maybe we'll get some more quests in there, get some different items added in. Variety is always good for a game. Quest phases, good news, thumbs up. A lot of players are getting confused, especially on these quests, not knowing where they're supposed to go, what they're supposed to be doing. Maps, NPC names, awesome, good stuff. Should have been there probably from the beginning, along with the journal you could even look back on to see what you're supposed to do, rather than trying to sort through all the random little notes that you have, if you even keep them. So the big nerfs, Hoarfrost, Mimic Tier, and Sword of Night and Flame. Were some of those overtuned? In my opinion, yes. Did they necessarily have to be hit? Maybe not. Maybe some things could have been brought up in line, which a lot of the sorcerer spells did get a buff. So now maybe those are a lot more competitive in terms of that versus just using Ash of War, for example. But overall, I think the game will be fine. Hopefully it gives more stability to some people. There are still people running around with invisible enemies they can't even see, and all kinds of broken quest lines that breaks the game for them. Hopefully those get fixed. And anyways, that's going to be the rundown from Team Xzavieur here. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you have any comments, please leave them down below. Let us know what you think. Were the nerfs justified? Too much? Too little? Do we need more buffs? Is there some sort of alternative change? What do you think? Add in a journal system? More NPCs? More variety? Let us know what you think. And remember, stay nerdy.